So you see this in a lot of like Nofap and semen retention circles. They have this idea that ejaculating somehow drains your life force and weakens your spiritual energy or cuts you off from a higher dimension of consciousness. And the reason they do this, it sounds mystical, important, and even dangerous. But once you actually examine it through philosophy, biology, and basic metaphysics, the whole idea falls apart. And again, like, it sounds mystical, important, and even dangerous. You could look at this like YouTubers who say this stuff. You see in those karate movies how you have like they'll go out and say things like, yes, the master can break 20 boards with his hand, or he can meditate and float. He was able to blow a candle out by pushing his hand at it, or like just looking at it. They'll say all this mystical stuff to get you to go and join their school or their online course in today's modern examples. Basically give them money or attention, which is money anyway. Every time you click on a video, they're getting paid. That's kind of what that is, where you see a lot of that, and we're going to tie it in down below. But anyway, here's some analogies like how this works. So like Goku and the spirit bomb analogy, energy doesn't come from the individual. So for instance, think of Goku charging the spirit bomb. The power that he's using isn't coming from his body or from himself personally. It's coming from the entire environment, the living world, and the entire universe, or the larger field around him. So he's just really just a channel for that energy to flow through, and we're all like that. So in a way, if consciousness is connected to this deeper infinite source around us, then releasing semen does not actually cut you off from the flow. You don't lose access to a cosmic plug or biological function. So when people feel drained, or they only feel drained when they rely entirely on their ego for energy. They're sleep deprived, stressed, or nutritionally depleted. And that's a big one. This may be where some of the ancient ideas come from, because you have zinc and all that in your semen. So if you do sit around and just spill your cup, so to speak, constantly, like you can lose out on zinc and like become nutritionally depleted. And if you're already nutritionally depleted, like in ancient times, ejaculating probably wasn't the best idea, because they needed all the vitamins and minerals they could get. You shouldn't go around and just take what I'm saying here. It's like, oh, I can go and spill my cup, or whatever. It's not about that. We're just trying to clear up the fear and the shame and guilt and all that. We'll get to it, but yeah. So, or they've created a psychological association between orgasm and weakness, so they kind of just have brainwashed themselves to think that. But anyway, it has nothing to do with actually losing life force. This is just a story people tell because it sounds fancy, and they can get you again to buy their course or join their online community and stuff. Or watch their videos. So the cell in the body metaphors is another one. The illusion of finite power. So if you want to like look at it on a micro level, on a smaller observable level, you could just imagine like a single cell in your body somewhere believing, like if it was conscious, and you can look at people as this single cell in the larger body that we're a part of. But imagine a single cell believing it will run out of energy if it released waste or secretes something. That would be absurd to us, obviously, because we understand that the cell is fed by the entire organism or the body. It exists within a larger field of nourishment and circulation. We're the same way. Our body is a part of the earth and the universe and all that. Your mind is part of the collective unconscious. Your consciousness is part of an infinite, interconnected ground of being. So from this perspective, the idea of running out of energy by ejaculating is like a wave in the ocean, thinking it disappears if it breaks on the shore. The wave is never separate from the ocean. And then looking at what Einstein taught, he said energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transformed. So even if semen were this life force thing that they're talking about, which it isn't, it wouldn't disappear when it leaves the body. It simply is changing from one form within the larger system. And the whole notion of energetic depletion is based on the false idea that humans are isolated, closed containers. We're not. There's a continuous exchange of energy, matter, and consciousness. And there's another analogy, the flower and the bee. This exchange creates life. So powerful analogy comes from nature itself, which really you can learn so much from nature, just observing nature. There's a reason why people like indigenous people and stuff are so wise about stuff. You can learn more in nature than you can from a church or a book, any book, because that's where they all get their stuff anyway. But anyway, and technology is even based on a lot of that, like birds and airplanes, etc. But bees take pollen and nectar from flowers, for instance. And at first glance, you may think like the bees are taking something away. But in reality, this exchange is mutually beneficial for the flower and the bee. The bee gets food, the flower gets pollinated, and life expands for both. And you can look up that process more in depth. It's the same universal pattern. Life flows through exchange, not withholding. Breath works this way. You breathe in and out, breathe in oxygen, release carbon dioxide. Ocean tides work this way as well. Mycelium networks work this way. Cosmic cycles work this way. So like even like this, like breathing in oxygen, from the ignorant perspective or the primitive, like you could say say, like maybe an ignorant perspective, you may say, oh, we're breathing up all the oxygen. But there's an exchange where when we breathe out, plants are breathing in our carbon dioxide and they're breathing back out or exhaling oxygen, which we both benefit from. But anyway, so where does this idea come from, this myth of like semen retention is like power and all this? So ancient traditions like Taoism and Tantra did value semen retention, but not because they believed ejaculation destroyed your essence. They used retention as a discipline to cultivate presence, focus, and subtle energetic awareness. But of course, modern people have twisted that wisdom into a literal superstition, mainly because it sells. Retention has benefits, spiritual depletion is not one of them. The real danger is lack of self-control, not ejaculation. And I was noticing on the lack of self-control, if you really think about it, there's nothing bad in the whole universe inherently. Like even alcohol, food, certain foods, sex. What's bad is people's lack of self-control. And it's kind of like an animal. If you have like, imagine your beastly nature. A lot of people will have like a dog, and instead of, they don't want to put the effort into training the animal to where it behaves, they'd rather throw it in a cage and chain it down. That's kind of how we do ourselves. It's just like fully abstinent. No, this is off limits. Instead of taking the dog out, putting him on a leash and like training it and allowing it to have fun or whatever, learn moderation and discipline and self-control, they just want to say complete repression. And again, when you do that with an animal, as you know, put it in a cage, eventually it'll break out and run wild, and that's like relapse. In us, that's what happens. Our inner beast will eventually snap and will relapse. That's why when you relapse, you run back to the church and you pray to the preacher and give him an offering, $1 in the tip jar or whatever. Or you run to, the manosphere or self-improvement YouTube, and they're going to make money off you watching their videos and advertisements and join their school, brother. Online school. So I've been there, I've done that. I'm speaking from experience. I've done all that. And all these guys, too, that you're looking up to, they all study psychology, and they'll tell you that themselves, but they will manipulate you, a lot of them. And that's I just want to throw that out there. So the real danger has never been ejaculation, it's the lack of discipline. Most people historically and today have very little self-control when it comes to their impulses. Instead of learning moderation, integration, and mindful expression, they default to extremes. Traditionally, this response to lack of discipline was to chain the inner beast, like we were saying, to put sexual energy in a cage. Full abstinence, strict repression, and shame-based rules became the solution, even though they are rooted rather in fear than wisdom. But caging the beast isn't the same as mastering it. Healthy sexuality requires discipline, presence, non-attachment, moderation, mindful expression. The real danger is becoming addicted to dopamine spikes, compulsive habits, and dissociation, not the act itself. Porn does play a role in this and we're not trying to say porn is okay, because I think that's the real danger. Because it's engineered to hijack your reward system, outsource your pleasure, so you're basically having to rely on this external thing to get pleasure or whatever. Whereas masturbation or sex in itself, like literally it takes power away from that external, so they can't make money off of you doing that. They can make money off of you coming to their site or to their whatever. Avoiding porn is healthier and a good idea. Not because sexuality is wrong, but because porn is addictive, it's designed to be, and it's taking away your power. Back on to this, I want to say, the thing is, people run to like these external authorities, religious systems and self-improvement teachers and Nofap influencers or whatever, because it's a lot easier to say, or you think it's a lot easier, it's really not. You just end up chasing your tail like a dog. But it's a lot easier to think, I'm going to cut it out 100% than to say, okay, I'm going to actually have some self-control and regulate the activity. For instance, like eating ice cream. Would you really want to tell yourself, I'm never going to have ice cream ever again my whole life? Or is it easier to say, you know what, I'm going to have ice cream, but I'm not going to be a glutton and eat it all day, every day, and get stoned and go on a dopamine spiral. Instead, I will reward myself with ice cream on holidays only. Or maybe it's at the end of the month on the 30th, I'll have a big ice cream if I've accomplished this. Or maybe if we win the sporting event, I'll get some, you know what I mean? You make it a mindful thing, not an impulsive thing. So it's kind of like giving a dog a treat when they do a trick or when they sit or whatever, instead of just giving them a treat every 5 seconds and they get fat and crazy, or not ever giving them anything and just putting them in a box. But anyway, so shame, control systems, and the fragmentation of the self. There is a historical power structure behind the sex is bad narrative. Back to this. It's very possible and often obvious that people in positions of religious or social authority, and that could be, like influencers, Nofap community and all that, because they're making money off of all that stuff too. So of course they're not ever going to, say anything against that, especially if the truth isn't profitable. Why should spread the truth, Shame and guilt fragment the person, and they use this to control people. So if you convince someone that a normal, natural function is sinful or dangerous, they feel broken and inferior. Like, man, I can't control myself. I need to go to this self-help guru online and join their online community and pay them and learn from their Discord and all that, or whatever, or church, whatever. They feel dependent on the outside authority. They repeatedly return to ask for forgiveness, purification, or approval, or steps and guides and all that, or buy a book or something. And they hand over more money, power, and obedience, and put these people on a pedestal who usually you find out they literally do all the stuff that they say they don't. You'll find out, oh yeah, they smoke weed. They tell you not to smoke weed and they do it. Oh, they play video games. They tell you not to do it. Oh, they're telling you about, not having sex or whatever, and you find out they are over here at a brothel in Las Vegas or something. So usually that's how it goes. Anyway, this creates a cycle of repression. This whole thing is shame about repressing your beastly nature or whatever. And you don't want it to run wild. I'm not saying that. Don't be a freak. Oh, don't take us and say, oh yeah, I can go and just paint the town. Yeah, like you're not trying to do that. Like you're not trying to be an animal. That's the thing. You're trying to how to train your dragon. You're trying to train your dragon. The modern system, like religious and the moral demonization of sexuality, Nofap and semen retention specifically, creates a cycle of repression. So you cage the animal, your inner beastly nature. You say no, that's bad. Put it in a cage, never let it out. Eventually, it breaks out, relapse. That moment where something goes off and you slip and you relapse, and then you feel shame. Then you're back at the church praying, putting money in the thing, or you're going right back to the Nofap videos and community or whatever it may be, and then it's all over again. Then you're back to, I'm going to stop doing this, and you relapse again. And so it's a cycle. It's a psychological trap, and it's designed to be that way. When sexuality becomes a devilish temptation, or we see it like that, people are rejecting a part of themselves or a part of the infinite, because that's a part of the infinite. So you're saying that part of the infinite or the expression of God is evil. So they exile that part into the unconscious or the shadow of the unconscious. And this fragmentation makes the person unwhole or unholy in the original meaning of the word. So the devil archetype works not by making people lustful, but by making them ashamed of their own nature, disconnected from their inner power and reliant on external authority rather than their own God-given strength. I just wanted to bring some, awareness to that. Not to say, oh, cool, so I can go and just run wild, because that's just as bad as relapse and just letting your animal run wild. No, you want to say, okay, I'm not gonna feel guilty and shameful. I'm gonna be easy on not like easy as like a parent who lets their kid run wild and stuff, but like a coach who's not just, be like your own coach and be honest with yourself and be mindful. And like if you do slip up or you see that you're getting out of control and getting a little wild with it, then you gotta like tame yourself, and you'll find like balance eventually. Everybody's different. You may need to work out more, meditate, get in your journal and see like what's making me restless or want this so much. Am I just not getting enough dopamine from healthy alternatives? Maybe you need to go on a dopamine detox. Maybe you're just overstimulated and that's your body's way of trying to shift from a sympathetic fight or flight mode to a rest and digest, or what do they call it? Sometimes they call it, I don't want to say the word, but it surrounds with duck, fight, or flight. Those are all kind of similar energies. You can see that with like fighting and ducking, so to speak, are basically like the same kind of energy. That's interesting because we've talked about this before, but like the hippies, they took the fighting energy that the elite wanted them to use for the Vietnam War and all that, and they said, oh, we're going to be over here instead of free love and all that, which was going way to the extreme into letting the beast run loose. But that was the difference. Instead of the beast going over here and relapsing and killing everybody and going nuts like they may want you to do, because when you're like pent up, you also are more agitated and ready to fight and all that. And Mike Tyson and other fighters will abstain because of that reason. I don't know how long this video is gone because I only got 15 minutes. So that's all I wanted to cover today. And so just be mindful about what you're doing, and stay off the porn. It's obviously bad, but that'll be it for this video. So thanks for watching, and y'all have a good one.